The Imaginative Hobbyist presents Spider-Man, Not Quite Home, written by Max Slocum, based on the motion picture Spider-Man No Way Home, written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. Pete was beat. It had been a long day at the Daily Bugle, and the line at the toy store was taking forever. Life was complicated, but that had been the case for 22 years now, since that one field trip back in high school. It would all be worth it, though, to see May's face on her birthday. She was a great kid and understood the importance of keeping her father's secret. With great power comes great responsibility, she had been taught. May was quite the little actress. Recently, she played Ariel in a production of The Little Mermaid. It was a role everyone thought she would be perfect for. And when the show was over, the applause in the school auditorium was thunderous. She dedicated her performance to her late great-aunt, whom she was named after. May, or Mayday as her parents nicknamed her, wanted for her birthday a doll of the lead character from one of her favorite shows on television, Kif. When the line finally began to move forward, Peter's spider sense began to act up. The lighting in the store changed suddenly, and its whole layout looked different. There was no line, and he wasn't holding a box containing a doll of a Disney cartoon squirrel in his hands. He wondered if this was the doing of Mysterio. He exited the store. In the distance, he saw that the Statue of Liberty was getting a new look. She was being painted gold, and her torch was being replaced with a circular shield with a star in the middle of it. Curious, he took out his phone and called the Daily Bugle to check with Betty Brandt. The response he received made him question his sanity. Betty was not the one answering the phone, and the building did not belong to the Daily Bugle. Apparently, the news publication was located elsewhere, and since the blip, they shifted from printed media to viral media. Peter asked what the blip referred to, and the receptionist paused, asked if he was being serious, and then ended the call. He overheard two people mention his name. He turned around to get a look at them, but he didn't recognize either person, and neither were looking at him. He considered the possibility that there might be another person who went by Peter Parker, as it was a big city and all, but then they brought up how the Daily Bugle revealed that he was Spider-Man. But how? He went over and started a conversation with the two and asked some questions. Through them, he learned that Mysterio himself, Quentin Beck, made a video before his death that revealed the secret identity of Spider-Man was Peter Parker. Jameson got his hands on it and released it to the public back in July, broadcasting in Times Square. The video was from the Daily Bugle. Well, this universe's version of the Daily Bugle anyway. Jameson looked about the same as he did back home with a slightly different look, but the Quentin Beck and Peter Parker of this universe appeared quite a bit different. Both were younger, with the Peter Parker of this reality still being in high school. The idea of parallel universes always intrigued Peter. One of the few memories he had of his father before his death was him explaining the fascinating possibilities of a multiverse. He explained that there was a possibility in one universe where you could be rich, and in the other, you could be poor. You could have been born earlier or later in time. And perhaps the most exciting possibility to 6-year-old Peter Parker was that in one universe, something like pixie sticks could be seen as a healthy food. Now, he was in a parallel world, and while a normal person would panic from being that far away from home, the science nerd in Peter was fascinated, and the superhero in him wanted to find and help this other Spider-Man. He walked around the city by foot. As tempting as it was to swing around, he knew he had to avoid that if everybody in New York knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. If he had to use his abilities, he would have to be sneaky about it. He journeyed to the Chrysler Building, where he usually went to the very top to overlook the city and think to himself. On the way over, he learned the most intriguing thing about this Earth. This was a world where there were multiple superheroes that had saved not just the world, but the whole universe a number of different times. Men in iron suits, super soldiers, green giants, and mythic beings. He returned the next night. He didn't come to the Chrysler Building this often, but this was an unusual situation that he was in. After some time looking at the city from the top floor of the building, the Daily Bugle broke a news story about a chaotic and devastating event that took place at the apartment complex that the Peter Parker of this universe was staying at. property damage, and one casualty, their Aunt May. The report talked about the escape of several figures possessing great abilities. The descriptions for 3 of the 5 people who left the building matched Flint Marko, Otto Octavius, and Norman Osborn. But it was the video footage that made him realize they were not native to this universe, but his own. He was puzzled by Octavius and Osborn, as he had watched both of them die and had attended their funerals. Questions would have to be asked and answered at a later time, though. As soon as Jameson finished his story, blasting this world's Spider-Man, Peter took off into the night to look for him. It was nighttime, which made it easy to swing around without getting too much attention. He landed on one rooftop, thinking he was getting close to finding this reality's Peter Parker. When out of nowhere, sparks spiraling into existence appeared, growing to form a portal into a cozy little house. There were 4 people there, 2 of which Peter had remembered from his research were the friends of this universe's Peter Parker. One of this Peter's friends looked to be the one conjuring up the portal. Nearby, there was an old woman and a man in his 20s wearing a Spider-Man costume, but it was a different design than his own. Another Peter Parker? Well, he was about to find out.